Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be going over Ram's all-new 2024 1500 EV. Yes, that is right, Ram is entering the EV truck market. Pretty crazy times. With all that being said, in the first part of the video we're going to go over the facts that we know, then we're going to have to do a little bit of speculation, then we're going to kind of top things off with whether or not this truck is really all that important in the EV truck segment, and then finally we're going to finish things off with whether or not you should look into purchasing one. With all that being said, let's get into the video. Now let's actually talk about this all-new Ram 1500 EV. So let's get into the confirmed information. First off, it's going to be a 2024 model year truck, and so expect this to come out late 2023, early 2024, somewhere around that range. Now, aside from the release date, something that Stellantis said overall is that they're going to try to have all their vehicles electrified by 2030. So what it's most likely going to look like is, hey, do you want to have a gas 1500 or do you want to have an electric 1500? And this will be in 2024. And then in 2030, it'll be like, which electric 1500 do you want? So just let that sink in for a second. Now, aside from that, obviously it's going to be built off of the 1500 platform. I don't know if it's going to be built off the current DT platform, if it'll be on a new platform, right? They might redesign the 1500 by then, and so it might be on a completely new platform. We'll see what happens with that. But whatever 1500 platform is being used at that point, it'll be a 1500 series truck. The other thing that Ram said was that this truck is going to be different compared to its competition. So they didn't say how they're going to differentiate things, they just said it's going to be different. So I guess take that for what it is. Now, aside from it differentiating itself, the other thing is they did release a teaser image of the front end. Looks really cool. You've got like a light bar on the front, similar to the F-150 Lightning. Maybe they're stealing a little bit, right? But really cool in terms of the styling on it. The Ram logo is illuminated, and the truck overall just looks really sleek. I think it's a really cool design, and yeah, it just looks like this crazy modern, like futuristic truck. And so yeah, we'll see what ends up actually happening. But imagine it's probably going to look very similar to the regular 1500, just probably a little bit more stylized, similar to what Ford did with the Lightning, where it looks like an F-150, but then just a little bit different so that people know, oh, that's actually a Lightning. But yeah, that's pretty much all we have in terms of confirmed information. There's not a whole lot. Now, if we step from the confirmed to the unconfirmed side, right, we can make some pretty safe assumptions about this truck, right, for them to keep it competitive. So for them to have this truck be competitive in the half-ton segment, and more importantly, the electric half-ton segment, they need to shoot for at least a 400 to 500 mile range for the truck. And if you guys are wondering why 400 to 500 miles seems to be the goal for most truck manufacturers that are making EV trucks, is most gas trucks right now, if you have them fully loaded in terms of the gas tank, right, then you're going to be getting about 400 to 500 miles of range. Unless it's a Ram TRX, then you're going to get like 200 miles of range because you get like 2 miles per gallon. But if it's a regular half-ton truck, 400 to 500 miles of range with most trucks. So that's why these EV trucks are all shooting for that. Now, aside from that, from a torque figure perspective, I imagine it's going to be in excess of 700 pound-feet. If not, it'd probably be like maybe 1,000 pound-feet by that point. I mean, the F-150 Lightning, 775 pound-feet. So just expect huge torque figures. Horsepower, expect that to be pretty high. I imagine it'll be in excess of 500. If not, I mean, at that point, it might be like 1,000 horsepower to stay competitive with the other EV trucks. We'll see how far these truck makers are going to take things by 2024, but just expect monstrous horsepower and torque figures and a crazy fast 0 to 60. Now, on the towing and payload capacity side of things, it's kind of interesting. So with this EV truck segment, they don't necessarily tow or have a higher payload compared to a regular truck. It's just, again, the 0 to 60 is crazy because of the crazy torque figures, but just because of limitations on the chassis and everything, they can't tow all that much. So I think the towing capacity, they're probably going to shoot for around 10,000, 11,000 pounds, so it's the same as the gas truck. And then payload capacity, right, it's going to be right around that 1,500 to 2,000 pound range, again, to keep it up to par with the gas truck. And so again, I think it's pretty safe to assume that it'll be somewhere within that range, again, to stay competitive with the competition, but then also so that it makes sense to purchase that over a gas truck, right? Because if it tows substantially less than a gas truck or has a substantially lower payload capacity, then people are going to be like, well, why would I buy that and not buy the gas truck? Because it's not nearly as capable. And also that's why they'll do the longer range with the truck, is if it doesn't have a lot of range, right, then people are just going to buy the gas truck because they need to drive a lot of miles. I think the average truck owner drives like 100 to 200 miles a day. Like, I mean, a lot of miles, right? So you need to have more range. And then aside from that, right, expect it to have a really nice interior like what we have in the current lineup with the Ram truck. So again, on the higher up packages, really nice leather, really nice infotainment system, gauge cluster, all that kind of stuff. But obviously, since this is an EV truck, they're probably going to make everything look a little bit more modern and stylized. So I bet the gauge cluster is going to be fully digital. If you guys haven't seen my review on the new Grand Cherokee L, go check that out. They have a full digital gauge cluster and then kind of like a newer stylized infotainment system. So I think they're going to kind of go that route with this truck. Obviously, we're having to make a lot of assumptions. We don't have a ton of information. But based on the competition that's out there right now and based on the current 1500, I feel like all those assumptions I made are, you know, relatively within range of what Ram will end up doing. And then if you guys are wondering what I think the pricing is going to be at, I imagine they're going to do something similar to what Ford did with the Lightning, where it's just a little bit more expensive than a regular F-150, but it's not substantially more expensive. And so expect this truck to probably start somewhere in like the high 30s, or the low 40s, and then it'll probably get all the way up to like $80,000 to $90,000 as like a fully loaded limited version. Now let's get into whether or not this Ram 1500 EV is actually important. Spoiler alert, it's tremendously important. So yes, we have the F-150 Lightning, the Tesla Cybertruck, the Rivian R1T, and the Hummer EV that are all coming out substantially earlier compared to this Ram 1500 EV. However, Ram is not all about releasing the first version of a truck. They like to wait a little bit, they like to analyze the market, and they like to see what people are enjoying and what people aren't enjoying. So yeah, there's some benefits to being the first automaker to release a particular type of vehicle, but then there's a lot of downsides, right? Because you're really testing the unknown. And so then if you're the person that waits a little bit, then you can go, oh, people like that, but they don't like that. So when I release my product, I'll keep that and I'll get rid of that, and then I'll be able to pull customers because my product will have something that yours does not, right? And that's kind of what Ram does. So look at what they did with the new 1500 DT, right? They looked at the market and they saw that people are using these trucks as daily drivers. Yes, they're towing with them, but for the majority of the ownership of the truck, people are just driving them around. And so they go, you know what, we're going to change things up. We're going to do 5-link coil suspension so it rides smoother. We're going to focus on the interior so that it's not only durable, but it has really nice materials and it's a really comfortable cabin to be in, because again, people are daily driving these and they're not always towing with them, and since it's a nice daily driver, they wanted to literally make it that way. And they're like, okay, we're also going to make the cabin quieter, we're going to move the engine back a little bit so it handles a little bit better, we're going to make the steering a little bit different so that the truck is easier to drive and maneuver even though it's a big truck. And that's just all the stuff they focused on with the Ram 1500 DT, and I mean, it's done amazingly well, right? They passed up Chevy in sales, which was absolutely crazy, but again, it's because they looked at the market, right? They weren't the first person to release the type of truck that they released, but when they did release the truck, right, they fixed a lot of complaints that people had about other trucks, and then they added some extra stuff, and it turned out to be an amazing product. And so I think they're going to do the same thing with this EV truck. And I guess another example I could give with Ram is also with the TRX, right? Because Ford was really the truck maker that invented the sports truck, kind of. I guess we had the SRT-10, but that wasn't like an off-road type vehicle, right? But anyways, we had the Raptor out for like a decade, right? We had the first Raptor, and then we had the Gen 2 Raptor, and Ram sat there and watched, and they watched the market, and they saw how many people were purchasing these trucks, and then they also saw what people were complaining about, and then what people also liked, and they took notes. And so when they released the TRX, they go, okay, we're going to still do 5-link coil suspension because that's going to be better off-road. Oh, people loved the live valve with the Gen 2 Raptors, so we're going to make sure that we have active suspension in our TRX. And they go, okay, people are constantly complaining about the EcoBoost, but they loved the supercharged 6.2 V8 in the Gen 1 Raptors from like Hennessy, so they go, okay, we're going to do a supercharged V8. And they took all these things, threw it together, and look at the TRX. It's doing amazing from a sales perspective. Like, they're just, I mean, you can't find them, right? And there's a reason why they're going for like $40,000 to $50,000 at MSRP at a lot of dealerships, and they're selling for that much. It's crazy. But again, it's because Ram stands back and they look at the market, and again, they look at what people like and what people don't like, and then they try to throw away the stuff that people don't like, and then they try to get the stuff that people like, and they try to kind of expand that out. And then they obviously throw in some extra stuff that they think is missing, and then that's the finished product. So again, this is not going to be the first EV truck to market, but I think that it's going to shake things up enough because they're going to look at all of the deficiencies and all of the things that are doing really well with EV trucks, and then they're going to basically release this finished, polished product, and I think it's going to do great. Now, aside from that, should you look into buying this? And I think what I just said should probably have answered your question. If you want to be one of the first people with an EV truck, right, then yeah, go get the Ford, go get the Tesla, go get the Rivian, whatever, if they ever release the vehicles at this point, right? It's taken forever for them to come out. Go get those. But if you want to have something that's going to be kind of more of a finished, polished product, then what I would recommend doing is waiting for this Ram to come out, because again, they said that they're going to make sure that this is different compared to the other trucks, and we have evidence of that with what they've shown us so far. Again, they did an amazing job with the DT, and they did an amazing job with the TRX, and so I think this is going to be another thing. I bet when it comes out, it's going to have more power, more torque compared to the competitors. It's going to have a nicer interior. It's going to have cool modern gadgets that are a little bit nicer, and just overall, they're just going to kind of tidy things up and just make it so it's a nicer overall product. And so if that's what you're looking for, I would wait for this new Ram 1500 EV. Now, should you go from your regular gas truck to this EV? I think it really just depends on what you're using it for. So if you're doing tons of towing, right, the EV is going to be capable, but then you're constantly going to have range anxiety, and I don't think that's worth it. But if you're just going to be towing once in a while, I think the EV truck will be great, because that instant power and instant torque will feel amazing when you're towing, and you won't have as much range anxiety because you're not going to be towing all the time. And so I just really think it depends on what you're looking for. I think that these new EV trucks are going to be kind of more for, I guess, people like me that don't tow very often, or literally there's a lot of people that have trucks nowadays that don't tow at all. And so if you fit into that category, I think this truck will be great for you. But if you're one of those people that like you tow for a living, for example, I think it'll still be the best thing to stick with the gas truck until we have faster charging and until we have other methods that make it so it is actually practical and feasible to tow with one of these vehicles all the time and not have to worry about range anxiety. But looks like the video is getting a little bit too long, so I'm just going to cap things off at this point. If you're stopping for the first time, I really appreciate it if you'd subscribe, comment down below what you think, and then as always, if you feel like my videos are of value to you, I'm going to include a link to my Patreon in the description down below. I'll see you guys.